Beware, something exciting is coming to video games. Gremlins 2, the new batch, the video game from Sunsoft. Help Gizmo battle the menacing Gremlins. But it won't be easy. Because this game has awesome graphics that seem to come alive on the screen. Gremlins 2, the new batch from Sunsoft. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Welcome, everybody, to Cinemarcade. This is the podcast about movies, video games, and the sparks that fly when those two worlds collide. We are back for part 2 of our little interior mini-series that we're doing within the giant macro series. This one's all about Gremlins. All about Gremlins. Best Picture winner, 1950. Starring Betty Davis. I'm slap happy as fuck, everybody. I'm going to warn you all now. I am a little sleepy, and I'm a sleepy tie-tie boy, and I'm not going to be making a whole lot of sense. But I think it's in keeping with the spirit of this chaotic little masterpiece that we watched today that I'm barely making sense and that I'm frequently breaking the fourth wall. My name is Steve Guntley. Who's with me today?
I'm the googly-eyed gremlin, Justin.
I'm the sexy gremlin, J-Band.
Oh, God.
So the one with glasses.
Sexy, the one singing New York, New York, like Frank Sinatra. Damn right, the sexy gremlin.
That's the one. All right, we're all in agreement on that. We are talking today about Gremlins 2, the new batch. That's right. There's a whole new batch of Gremlins, folks, and I don't know that you're properly prepared for exactly how batshit this movie gets. At the insistence of my girlfriend Ailish, I'm going to issue a blanket warning now. If you have not watched Gremlins 2, the new batch, for the love of God, go watch it and then come back and listen to it, because if, like her, you went into this movie without any kind of expectation whatsoever, you are going to have your mind blown by the places this movie goes. I think she was really just expecting just another Gremlins, just like more of the first movie. And you can tell that's kind of where the studio wanted them to go. But that's not ultimately where Joe Dante took this movie. Let's talk about it. Gremlins 2, the new batch. It was directed by Joe Dante, written by Charles S. Haas, and this stars Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, John Glover, Robert Prosky, Robert Picardo, Haviland Morris, Christopher Lee, Dick Miller, Howie Mandel as Gizmo, and Tony Randall as the Brain Gremlin.
And fun fact, the delivery guy, that's Tuco Salamanca from Breaking Bad.
It sure is, yeah.
Unmistakable voice. As soon as I heard it, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, very
I
young
know
Raymond
you
Cruz,
as
yeah.
a more murderous man.
Yeah,
with a few more years on you.
He's a little nicer in this movie than he is in Breaking Bad, I would say. He's just a pleasant delivery guy.
Hell of a whistler.
Some of the other cameos are like, who else do we get? The janitor who spills water on Gizmo. That's the original Gomez Addams from the Addams Family. And then the projectionist in the middle of the movie is Chuck Jones, the creator of Looney Tunes, which is a very, very appropriate reference to have in this movie. Well, before we get into the history here, I wanted to ask you guys your experience with this one. I know this is Justin's first experience with this one.
Yes.
So I got to go with you. What were you expecting, and what did you get?
I was confused when I got an extended Looney Tunes bit at the beginning, because I was like, this is the right movie, right? Like, I rented this one on YouTube, and I was watching it on my phone, and I was like, What happened? Is this something that got put in modern, or is this something that was there to begin with? And at one point, I had pulled up, I think, the Wikipedia article to verify some names, and I was like, whoa, this is intended. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. And then, you mentioned the guys in it, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then, boy, howdy, was I again. My expectations were, all right, we already saw a small town get destroyed.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people die, maybe.
Yeah, off screen, implied,
implied deaths.
Except Mrs. Deagle, we saw her die, but everybody else was implied.
And the science teacher.
Oh yeah, we did see him die too. Yeah.
I feel like there might have been one or two more in there that was like, oh, they're dead.
Yeah, some car wrecks that definitely killed people.
Yes. And so this movie starts off very like corporate dystopian, and I was like, all right, this is an interesting vibe to go for. And then
about midway through, there's a pivot from what this movie starts out to what this movie is really up to.
Honestly, that's really it. It's
Yeah.
like you start off with a lot of like exposition about this company that Billy works at now, and his girlfriend.
Clamp Industries.
Clamp Industries. What a name to have.
And we want to be very clear. This is in no way associated with another blonde-haired New York City developer billionaire who was popular in the news at that time. He's certainly not somebody who has gone on to ruin a lot of things. Yeah, no. This is not based on anybody real. Yes.
No, honestly, because this person seemed to have at least some kind of a heart in there.
I think he's more of like a feckless billionaire like Richard Branson.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
not smart and also not the dumbest.
Right.
What a character.
He's kind of a really fun performance from John Glover. Yeah, that's a really great. We'll go into more of the we'll break down the scenes a little bit. J-Ban, have you seen this one before?
I have seen this one before, and I saw it many times as a child, to the point where I feel like the first movie and the second movie sort of merged into this sort of amalgamation in my memory. And then upon the rewatch, it's so bonkers.
Yeah.
But definitely Gizmo the puppet that's the Gizmo from my imagination as opposed to the first movie. And it's a wild ride, and there's just something so that's I think it's interesting. In the first movie, you have very heavily implied deaths.
Yeah.
And in this, and I think that was rated PG.
Yeah.
And this one, you have no deaths, I don't think.
Human deaths? Yeah, there aren't. Well, yeah, Christopher Lee dies.
There's a lot of attacks. Yeah, Christopher Lee does.
He gets
die.
electrocuted. Yeah.
But there's not as many deaths as the first one.
Yeah.
And
I
this
don't know.
got
I
the
saw a
PG-13.
large quantity of deaths. They just were not human deaths.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, the Gremlins died, but
A lot of Gremlins died.
They're Gremlins.
They're very
At one point,
very
one of them-
gloopily.
At the end, I was fucking shocked because it's like just carnage, and then it's like a guy, like police and like military-esque guys are like walking in, and one guy just shoots a moving dead gremlin with a shotgun and is like, "It moved," and I was like, "Oh my god."
Did you notice that
What?
SWAT team went hut 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 hut?
I love that so much. It's so
I don't
stupid.
know when did that start as like a thing in movies, like military people or like SWAT teams going hut 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 hut.
I don't
think
know.
it's just a generic like semi-satirical, right?
Yeah, I
Because
think
like you're making fun of them.
Right,
to a
like
degree.
they wouldn't be doing that in real life if it were an operation, right? They'd want to be like,
No, they're doing it.
oh, okay, all
Every
right,
time.
all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I haven't been in a Gremlins 2 situation before, but yeah, I mean,
Only a few people have.
I mean, all my cards on the table. I think this movie is kind of a damn masterpiece. I love this movie.
I think the first movie is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I think this is interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
And I don't think I think it's really geared towards children, and it's really fun. But it doesn't have the same. I'm a sucker for a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And the first quarter is just like having bad bosses, as some guy getting fired.
Yeah.
It almost felt like the opening to Die Hard as well. Of
It
just
felt
like
a lot like the opening to
Yeah.
Die Hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Nakatomi Plaza in Clamp Tower. I mean, I will push back on this being more for kids because I I think this is such like I mean, aside from like the bonkers, cartoonish, chaotic stuff that's in this movie, this is a really savage satire about corporate life in the 90s and also about sequel making in general and kind of the soulless like rigmarole that people expect from movies like this. You know, I want to give a little bit of context historically for what like led to this beautiful disaster of a wonderful movie. So, you know, Gremlins, we discussed last week, a huge hit, made a ton of money, and it was critically and commercially beloved, you know, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, we need more Gremlins. Let's do it. Joe Dante, come on back. Except Joe Dante did not want to come back and do it again. He felt like the first movie ended exactly where he wanted it to end, and he didn't really have anything else to say about it. So he moved on to a couple other projects while Warner Brothers continued to shop around Gremlins 2 to other directors. Some premises were tossed around. I think Gremlins in Vegas was once the premise. Gremlins on Mars almost happened. That was something they were really thinking about, which would have been interesting. And Joe Dante, in the meanwhile, was like, he had a couple of movies that are like, I think are very good movies, but they didn't really connect critically. Like he did The Burbs and Inner Space and Explorers.
Love The Burbs.
There's some good movies in there.
I love The Burbs.
So are you saying
Yeah.
that he may have been wanting maybe some cash?
I think he was in a position
Maybe
to
a big
hear
project?
an offer, and Warner Brothers was in a position to offer him complete creative control, the one thing that every filmmaker dreams of getting. They are
And
going to
that
be
no
completely
filmmaker
hands-off.
should get.
Absolutely, because everybody who makes movies is insane, and this movie demonstrates that. He took that check and he cashed it, and he's going to say, he said he's just going to make the wildest, craziest movie that he could come up with. So this really shows, like you can see it right from the get-go. Now, Dante's biggest like influences as a filmmaker are like 50s monster movies and Looney Tunes cartoons, and so that is 100%
Things that go
what he
together
made
all the time.
so perfectly. But this is also this crazy, chaotic meta commentary on this whole idea of blockbuster filmmaking. This movie, like, I think critics kind of dismissed this movie when it came out because they said it's like, all right, like, it's fun, like, when it starts getting all wacky, but it's pretty disjointed. The plot's kind of recycled from the first one. And I think they were taking that as a bug instead of a feature. I think that was always intentional, that they're going to get the housekeeping out of the way. It's like, all right, Gizmo is going to get back to Billy and Kate in the most, like, hackneyed, coincidental way possible. We're really not going to spend much time on their reunion at all because we just need to get these pieces into place. And then what happens in the first one? He gets wet. What happens after that? They multiply, then they get a hold of food, they turn into gremlins, they wreak havoc. Same exact thing happens here, but it's done in such like a perfunctory way.
It's a perfunctory way that also includes a commentary on gentrification.
Oh, 100%.
Honestly, that part was fucking wild to me. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like they try to buy out the old man in his shop, and he's like, "No, I still have a soul." And they're like, "You
We'll wait him
sound
out."
like you're sick. All we
Yeah.
have to do is wait." And then it just says 6 weeks later, and they're fucking bulldozing the place because
And
he
you
died.
know,
And-
it's his grandson, the one that gave away.
The one that gave away, yeah, 100%. He's like, yeah, oh yeah, no, come on, I need college money. Come on, let's do this. And the fact that they're bulldozing this authentic Chinatown to replace it with this glossy, like, corporate Chinatown where he's organizing, having a parade thrown for him from
It
the
was
locals.
so literally the point where he's like, let's drum up support by having the locals put on a parade for us.
Well,
Yes.
And it's so interesting. They have him be like a feckless billionaire, but he's like creating this toxic environment around him that is
Ooh.
just so pervasive.
Yeah.
I just realized the way that I was talking. He reminds me of a Zap Brannigan type of
Yeah, Zappa. Yeah.
type of character.
He's exactly that. Like, he's going to do whatever he's going to do. We're talking about the Daniel Clamp character here. Really, okay, it's a bit hackneyed to say that, like, the setting or whatever is the fifth character. New York is the fifth member of Sex and the City, whatever. But the tower that this movie takes place in really is a whole character in its own. Clamp Tower is built to be the most technologically advanced tower in the world. And everything is breaking all the time because they're overcomplicating everything. So it's this commentary on, like, this commercialization. I also the funniest moments in this movie for me are the overhead speakers that go off all the time. Like, when the fire alarm goes off, it's this whole speech about fire, scourge of Prometheus, destroyer of plants. Your building is now on fire. And then, like, when you go into the men's room, he adopts this, like, hyper masculine, like, John Wayne voice. Welcome to the men's room. It's like this weird, constant narrator going on that's like infusing this little sense of like stoic toxic masculinity into every aspect of the way that this building operates.
If I'm not mistaken, he goes into the bathroom and you hear that, and then somebody else is coming out of the bathroom at the same time, and it's like, whoa there, make sure you flush the toilet, big boy. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Who wrote this? And when I say that, I don't mean who wrote the lines, I mean who developed this software.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who made this happen?
Oh man, I mean it's so I mean there's just so much, and the fact that the building is always malfunctioning makes it a really perfect like foiling, like a playground for the rest of the movie.
I thought because Die Hard came out like 85? 88. Mm-hmm. I felt like this was like the next level of the Nakatomi Tower, because like at the beginning of Die Hard, it's like they have a touch screen style like directory, and he's like, how the fuck do I'm a New York cop. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, I don't know about taxi cabs. I don't know about no touch screens.
And then it's like the same thing. Like they have video calls in the building. They have, and I think this might also be a solid commentary on capitalism and dystopian futures. Or dystopian presence, where they have a team in the building that their entire job is to find people slacking off and report them so they get fired.
I love that, because again, that's
something that we would never do in modern society.
Like we were talking, like the Clamp character kind of gets to be like a little heroic, or at least a little sympathetic in some places, or at the very least he's very likable. But he gets to do that because he's surrounded by all these like middle managers and lackeys who are going around like throwing away your house plants and measuring how far your cubicle is from the window. So it's this really great commentary on like the corporate world. And before you start thinking that this movie's getting all highbrow, it's also completely batshit Looney Tunes crazy.
Looney Tunes.
Because that's the first half of the movie.
Yeah, that's kind of setting the framework. And then there just comes a point, and you can pinpoint it. It's the moment when film critic Leonard Maltin comes on screen to read his own negative review of Gremlins that he really wrote, only to be murdered by gremlins who come out and eat him. Like, that's the moment where this movie finally kind of shows its cards.
Was it that moment, or was it when the Hulk Hogan moment?
That comes later.
Yeah.
That comes later.
I feel like that is the beginning and then the end of the transition. Because then you start getting wild, wacky hijinks you get like the Gremlins hijinks that you expect.
Yeah.
And then it quickly twists and you're like, bro, what the fuck? Like, because they break into the genetic laboratory.
Well, yeah, we get this moment where it's supposed to be like this plot-heavy moment where they're having the confrontation with Christopher Lee's mad scientist, and he's going to explain how to save them. And the movie recognizes that this is a boring scene that we don't need to see, and so the whole screen turns white, and gremlins start manipulating the screen and doing shadow puppets, and the only person who can stop them is Hulk Hogan, professional wrestler who is going to yell at the screen, crush his popcorn, rip off his shirt, and make sure the gremlins stop playing around. I think that's the moment for everybody where this movie's like, if you're gonna be in on this movie or out on this movie, this is the turning point. It's all hinging on the Hulkster, and it's where I am like so fucking in on this movie, because that's the moment where you realize that the whole premise here isn't just making fun of sequels, making fun of corporate like entities or any kind of satire like that. The whole point of this movie is to make a movie that feels like it is being ruined by gremlins while you are watching it. Gremlins are in the writing room. Gremlins are on the screen. They are running the show, and that makes it so fun to me.
They're also getting married.
They are getting married. Oh man. Okay. Having this mad scientist lab
so
in this
nuts.
corporate tower is such a masterstroke, because I think a really cool thing this movie. So, well, we have to talk about the special effects, I think, because this movie costs about 4 times as much as the first movie does, and I think it really shows in the puppetry and the animatronics.
Stop motion,
Yeah,
is so. It's like night and day, because before you had the Gremlins that were just kind of like launching themselves around and doing stuff, and then in this one, like, early on in the movie, Gizmo like does a little dance number.
Yeah.
And with every scene that Gizmo's in, you're like, oh my god, this looks way better than the old one, than the last movie.
I mean, he has such like detailed facial animation in this.
And then they hit the genetic laboratory, and it really starts coming out, because they basically just like start finding random serums around and injecting it into different Gremlins. So the first Gremlin injects brain serum in, and he immediately becomes a smart British Gremlin and puts on glasses because clearly his eyesight needed correction, and then just starts. It becomes the narrator / big bad of the movie and just starts talking about everything. Literally doesn't stop talking for a while.
So he's voiced in this by Tony Randall, who is kind of you know him from like the 60s or the 70s TV version of The Odd Couple. You know, you might not, but he's from The Odd Couple, things like that. And he's kind of synonymous with like these kind of foppish, kind of erudite, like intellectual types. And the fact that he's bringing this really crazy accent and it's coming out of this gremlin is so jarring and so funny. And I think he's great.
And immediately after that, he just starts shooting up all the other gremlins with whatever the fuck they find around.
And that's
you want bat wings? Let's go, buddy. You want to be invincible to sunlight? I got you.
Absolutely. I mean, well, and
nuts.
even in the just kind of everyday gremlin designs, there's a lot more differentiation. Like if you think about the first batch of gremlins, they're all pretty anonymous except for Gizmo and Stripe, right? Those are the only 2 you really need to care about. This one, like the core 4 gremlins that kind of spout off of Gizmo, are all very distinctive looking, and they all have their own personality traits. And then we start getting more and more.
They do, but there's Spike is such a good character.
Yeah.
And I think this movie suffers from a lack of Spike, because they have the smart gremlin, but they don't spend enough time with the smart gremlin to really show him being malevolent. And
is that not the same one that kidnaps, beats up, and then tortures
that's not
Gizmo?
the same one.
That's the spider gremlin.
That is a spider gremlin.
Okay.
Yeah. He's the only one. That is something kind of disappointing, that like the core 4, I'm going to keep calling them that from Scream 6, but the core 4 gremlins that you start with don't really get to turn into anything more distinctive. They're just kind of there, you know, or they don't get like a distinctive death or anything. Well, like
and
that.
it's really funny because like I don't know, rolling it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Like setting up through this movie, like I think it's so interesting that the protagonist and Phoebe Cates, or Billy and Phoebe Cates, like they're not married and they're living together in sin in New York City, and they're like not getting married.
Yeah,
like I always think it's always so funny about how nearly every movie of all time, like you can never have a married couple in a sequel for whatever reason. In every single sequel that's ever happened, they've not gotten married.
You have to give them somewhere to go.
In this situation, they did say basically we're too poor to get married.
No, they say that, but
which
no one is
right.
too poor to get married. You can go to a justice of the peace.
Yeah, wherever. Go to
wait around, get common law married,
drive out to Albany, Buffalo, whatever. Figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like aside from Daniel Clamp, I always forget there are other human characters in this movie. You know,
I think
Billy and Kate like really have very little screen time. They have very little to do in this movie. They do,
like, well, I don't know. So there's a couple in the first part of the movie. Billy's very much in the movie, and they seem to have borrowed the plot from Fright Night.
Yeah. He's friends with an old TV vampire. Yeah,
he's friends with an old TV vampire that is dissatisfied with his old TV vampiring.
Yeah. He wants to be a journalist.
Why would you be dissatisfied with being an old TV vampire? That sounds like a
He's
sweet
got a
gig.
puppet sidekick named Igor. Come on.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
It
That's
seems like a
that's the
pretty
dream.
sweet life, but it seems like all old vampire television guides, unless they're Elvira, are dissatisfied with their life. But I thought it was
Which
really
is why Elvira is forever the best of them.
Well, it is just like this movie is like vaguely like it's got so like tongue in cheek issues with women. Like the poor Phoebe Cates character is just like she's just like I am giving tours of this thing wearing a ridiculous outfit.
Yeah.
And I am being the attractive boss of Billy is like wildly hitting on
She's
him.
a man-eater. Yeah.
And it's just so you're like, what? This is what people think of the big city.
Well, they really had to pare down Phoebe Cates because we talked about it last episode. Like Phoebe Cates, one of the most beautiful human beings who's ever lived.
Yeah.
And they have to make her like mousy and dull in this, which is kind of no fun.
Well,
she does get a great moment where she gets to parody her speech from the first movie.
I did.
Which is
notice
a
that.
laugh out loud moment every time. Yeah.
I was like, wait, is this where we're going? What was it, like President's Day and Abraham Lincoln? She's like, I can't. I'm traumatized by Abraham Lincoln.
That was just so
like,
funny to me.
were
And
you-
just like, we have to
were
go.
you
We
there?
don't have time for this. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were just immediately like, hey, hon, not right now.
Yeah. And you could tell they were letting her like improvise a little bit too, which
They-
is really fun.
Definitely had some of that 90s feel of like, even the movies that weren't misogynistic were kind of misogynistic.
Oh, well, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Like the movies that were trying to not be misogynistic were still that way just because of the times were not great.
Even still, in like a post-working girl world, we still had to shame the boss character a little bit for being kind of a go-getter, right?
Yeah. Well, it's really funny because like Phoebe Cates has quite a few moments of scream queening in this show, and it made me want more of Phoebe Cates in this role. I especially wanted her to be like a little more active because they definitely make her a little hapless, especially bringing home the googly-eyed.
Why would she ever think that's Gizmo?
Look, she didn't seem very interested in or very enthusiastic about the whole idea of, oh, Gizmo's back? Great.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was kind of funny that Billy knew where Gizmo went. He just never went to go check on him.
Mm-hmm.
He just never went to go say hi, what's up?
Yeah.
This prominent figure from my life.
I mean, really, like for how much they were queuing up this reunion, Billy and Gizmo share almost no screen time. Like, they're both off doing their own thing. Gizmo spends most of the movie stuck in the vents until he realizes he needs to fight back, and we get the amazing Rambo moments where he's
my God.
working out and making a little bow and arrow, and then he gets to kill the spider gremlin with a match. Like, that was so good. I love his little headband.
So much Rambo.
So much Rambo.
Rambo Part 2.
At the end where it's like, yeah, if we get rid of the headband, and he's like, mm-mm.
No, he likes it. He likes it. It's part of his thing.
I did love the like. I just like when the Mogwai were like just talking and they're like, saying things, especially early on, where it's like at one point, I think this might be near the end, where he's like, they're like, taking Gizmo and they're like, oh, we're gonna have a good life, and Gizmo's like, HBO. And you're like, excuse me, how did you find out about HBO? Next thing you're going to be asking for Cinemax.
I mean, cable at this time was still like a luxury for most households. Like it wasn't like widely available yet. So like you could, it was still a time where you got real excited about cable TV.
It's so, so I have to say,
yeah.
What was your favorite Gremlin? Because I think I know my favorite Gremlin from a couple of different perspectives.
Okay.
I really think the fucking vegetable, excuse my language,
No,
the
please.
vegetable
How
Gremlin.
dare you say fuck on this child-friendly podcast?
Yeah, that's really fucked up, J-Man.
For when you talk about like when it goes off the rails and you're like, whether or not you're in or whether or not you're out.
Yeah.
For me, that moment is the vegetable Gremlin.
This is the first Gremlin to shoot up with performance enhancing. I don't think this one's performance enhancing.
It's genetically modified.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that his
serum.
performance is
I
enhanced.
mean, the rest of them all get some kind of cool trait, and he just gets to have tomato warts.
I mean, the vegetable gremlin only pays off in two very subtle ways. One is he gets to jump out of the salad bar, and two, another gremlin plucks an olive off him to put in his martini. That's all the vegetable gremlin does, but I love that he's there.
Sometimes
it's a great design. He looks amazing.
Well,
Sometimes you have to be the support character.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's something that this movie shines at is the actual support, the tiny bits that they have 100 tiny bits that if you blink and you
Especially
miss
at
them,
the end.
But like the tiny bits, the homages to movies, like the very silly bat gremlin that like escapes with a bat signal.
Oh, I love that so much.
And then turns into like a fucking gargoyle.
I mean, it should be mentioned too. Mr. Futterman and his wife survived the first movie,
which I was shocked by.
Despite getting run over by bulldozers, they survived that movie. They're okay.
Snowplows.
And excuse me. Yeah, you're right. And I do have to love this because this is probably the most on-screen time that Dick Miller has ever gotten. He's one of those hey, it's that guys who's been working since like the 40s, and Joe Dante just considers him like a lucky charm. But this is kind of the most screen time he's ever got in a movie in like 70 years of acting. So I love Dick Miller.
You still have the xenophobic man, but now he has PTSD.
Exactly. And I like that they even give him that little character beat, that he's still struggling and everybody is trying to convince him that the gremlins weren't real. And and he gets his hero moment. As for favorite gremlin, I mean, it's boring, but I gotta go Brainy. I gotta go Brainy Gremlin. I mean, you're right that he's not like a big bad necessarily. He's kind of just anchoring the movie and becoming the de facto leader because he's smarter, but he's not really like super malicious.
Brainy before or after New York, New York?
Oh man, during New York, New York, the best moment. When I was a kid, that was absolutely my favorite moment because I'm just like, oh, this is so good. Justin, what's your favorite gremlin?
Man, I definitely did not have that question in my brain as I was watching the movie. I mean, the Vegemon was a solid one.
Yeah.
That one's taken.
Honestly, I was just kind of watching the spectacle unfold of all the random ass shit.
Really, I thought
happened.
you would like the lady gremlin.
That one gave me the heebie-jeebies. I was like, okay.
But I am going to put this out there. If I can't imagine it hasn't been done at this point, but if it hasn't, drag queens of the world, please embrace this character. Please make this a part of your whole routine. Do a whole New York bit. Come out of like hexagonal little like tiles. Have multiple costume changes. Come on. This is like a drag icon right here.
Harass people.
Just don't harass people. Yeah, don't
force the man into a marriage. Although at the end he came around to it, but I was like, is this Stockholm syndrome?
Also, of course, this movie ends with an implied gremlin blowjob. Like, of course it does. How else could this movie end? Of course it ends that way. There's no way else to do it. Oh, this movie is perfect. It is so good.
Oh man!
I mean, it's absolutely nuts. Unfortunately, Oh, go ahead.
As far as we know, there's still a gremlin out there.
There's still at least one. And there's always Gizmo, and that guy is like the typhoid Mary of gremlins. You know? He's just like ready to spread it around.
So you mentioned earlier something. Are you telling me there's not a 3?
There's not. All right. So this movie was a financial disappointment. The first movie was the 4th highest grossing movie of the year in one of the most profitable movie years of the 80s. This movie cost much more, and it kind of just broke even, or maybe didn't quite break even. So
I normally don't think we should take toys into the account when we're talking about box office, but you've got to take toys have got to make, like, I cannot imagine.
And home video, yeah.
Like in home video, like like I couldn't find any information about whether or not it was a killer home video release or it was a killer toy release, but like I just can't imagine this movie not making its money back on toys.
It must have, like, through merch, but also you have to keep in mind that, like, anytime you look at a film's budget, you can basically double it for, like, marketing, merchandising, things like that. So, like, there are still a lot of costs to recoup. But I think this is a movie that has grown a lot over the years. Like, I think not only in critical estimation, but, like, it's become kind of a cult favorite. And to the point where, like, yeah, there has not been a Gremlins in 33 years now, which is pretty wild. But we did talk about, like, a new HBO Max series has just dropped called Gremlins Secret of the Mogwai. It's a kid's show. It's an animated show, but it is kind of keeping that flame alive. And there has been some news about Gremlin 3.
It's going to be a kid's show until the final episode where it's rated R.
Yeah, it's just going to get super violent. I mean, all right, so here's the news I found about Gremlins 3. We may actually see it in our lifetime. That's the good news. It's been heavily rumored since the 90s, but in 2013, Vulture reported that Spielberg was actively working on it. It went through a couple of iterations where they didn't really go. They haven't been able to find a director yet. Zach Galligan, who plays Billy, has confirmed that he's involved, and that it is going to be a sequel and not like a reimagining or a remake. It is going to be a proper sequel. And Chris Columbus has been attached as a writer once again. He wrote the first movie.
And discovered
Here's the thing that
America's
exactly. Here's the thing that kind of melted.
That's in quotes.
Oh yeah, discovered.
Discovered.
He discovered Cuba. Come on, let's be real.
He took credit for it and then caused a lot of shit.
He sure did. Not this one though. This one's fine. He wrote Gremlins. Okay, but this is the fact that blew my mind here, and I'm really curious what this is going to ultimately look like. But Chris Columbus gave a 2020 interview where he said, well, the good news is that the movie's not going to use CGI. It's going to be all puppetry and animatronics, as it should be. Very smart choice. Here's the weird thing. He wants to go super dark with it again. And he says one of the central themes of the movie is questioning whether or not Gizmo should die.
Yeah. Oh my! I almost brought that up.
This is the thing. This is
I
the thing
thought
people have talked about.
That came up in my head a few times where I'm like, we could just end the problem.
It's kind of a horrible thing about because Gizmo is a lovely little guy, but he is the cause of all of this problem.
And not a single Mogwai that spawns off of him isn't an evil clone, basically.
Right. Yeah, he's the only good one somehow. So I can't imagine we could make like a successful movie that's all about killing this adorable little franchise mascot for existing. And like, I can't imagine this would be fun.
I don't know. I watched I Am Legend.
I guess that's true. Yeah. But I mean, it is interesting that they're thinking about it in that regard. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I feel like if this Mogwai show is successful, then maybe there'll be more of a push. But then that also might make it more of a kid-friendly thing than the series has kind of become. Well, but if we only have these two, I think these are two pretty damn
maybe
perfect
they
movies.
can make the 40th anniversary. That's when did the original come out? 87?
84. 84.
Oh.
So probably not.
Yeah. I thought this was a little later.
Unless they've been sneaky on us. All right, I think we need to talk about the game.
Yes, the game.
Gremlins 2, The New Batch, the video game, is released in October of 1990. It's developed and published by Sunsoft, and it appeared on the NES, the Game Boy, and then a bunch of early personal computers. Let's raise a hand if we've heard of any of these. The Amiga, the Atari ST, the Commodore 64, DOS, MSX, Amstrad, the ZX Spectrum. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, that's the ZX Spectrum. I always get that wrong. It's a British computer.
The local tech nerd or the resident tech nerd. I have heard of all of these things.
Oh,
have you really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard a single thing.
The Commodore 64. That one was the. I mean, these ones were a little before my time because I was like.
Yeah, I never had
2,
one.
But.
Yeah. Commodore 64 was like the big personal computer of the 80s. Yeah.
And I have played games in DOS before.
Yeah.
Our first computer was a laptop with like Windows 2 on it.
Okay.
Maybe 3.1. But it was an old piece of junk and floppy disk, everything.
Oh, I love the floppy disk. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so you could find those on those various computers. From everything I've read, it's not as good as the version that we played today, which was the NES version. This was done by Sunsoft, which is a studio I really love. We'll be talking about them a couple times because I think they did some of the higher quality movie adaptations on the NES.
Are you implying that this is higher quality?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
I am. Yeah, they did games like Batman, the original Batman game, which is really great. Platoon. Did you know there was a game based on Platoon?
No.
They did it. We're going to be watching Platoon. Yeah, so for video games like that are based on movies, I feel like the most successful ones or the most enjoyable ones are going to be the ones that are built around the movie. You know, I think we're going to see a lot of games where it's just like, oh, okay, we have this unreleased shooter that some MIT student made on a weekend. Let's just let's crank it out and say, oh, okay, you're now Terms of Endearment the game, you know, or whatever.
Terms of Endearment.
Great game. Press X to pull plug.
Oh.
That was mean. Okay. But yeah, you know, a lot of times you're going to get games like that where it just feels like nobody actually gives a shit. And it's just like, all right, we'll just make this fit. We'll just tell people this works. I think this Gremlins 2 game is very clearly built around this movie, in its aesthetics and its styles and its choices of power-ups, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this could have been anything, but at the same time, it would have been a pretty decent anything, especially for the time.
Yeah, we're getting a top-down platformer, which is always a little bit of a weird concept to wrap your head around, right? Because especially on the NES, where your graphics are limited and you need to be able to gauge distance, and sometimes that's not always clear. I think this game helps by having surprisingly great graphics for an NES game. I think this game looks fantastic.
The cutscenes are really good.
They're so cute.
Yeah, we definitely when the opening sequence had Billy's face in it, I was like, that is a lot more pixels than we saw, presumably Billy's face in the first one.
Yeah, the first one where he's a fat old man.
And so yeah, they definitely pulled out the stops on that one. I think the art direction was typically going in good ways.
Yeah. And Gizmo looks like Gizmo.
He absolutely
Yeah,
does. He has a little heft to him too.
That's the other
he's got
thing.
some dimension.
You play as Gizmo, which
feels
is the correct choice.
Such an obvious choice, right? But I mean, to be fair, Gizmo was pretty passive in the first movie. This is the one that tries to kind of make him a little bit more active by giving him his Rambo moment.
Basically swapping him and Billy's roles to a degree.
Largely, yeah. Yeah.
Because the last movie, I guess it made sense to have Billy be the main character. It did not make sense for that game to be what that game was.
Yeah.
But this one definitely played like a solid platformer
This
for the
game
time.
was so charming. And it was definitely it was challenging, but it wasn't ridiculously challenging.
No.
It was a really nice, adaptable level, and I really liked the Gremlins. The Gremlins have their own distinct personalities, and the skateboard gremlin enemy, of course, endless jumping.
Which again,
J-Band's
you've got the record.
favorite
Yeah,
mechanic.
you're anti-jumping, but you were doing really well at this game.
I was feeling pretty solid at this game, and it was just the graphics and the music was really good.
Yeah.
And especially the triumphant music at the end of the sessions.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a really fun game in my opinion.
It was.
Yes.
I think the worst part about it, and that's just because I'm not a fan of challenging platformers, that it was a difficult one.
Yeah.
And we were discussing it. It's that was the goal, because there are only 5 levels in the game, and if it wasn't difficult, you'd be done in an hour or less. And then what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
Obviously, it was on the
another game.
NES, so it didn't have save capabilities. So old school had the level codes.
This is something that I think might come up again in the course of our podcast. But this is something that I've always found very interesting is the old school death versus modern death
Yeah.
in video games, about the devastating of having to get to the boss and then having to go back to the beginning of the fucking level.
We finally, at the end of level 2, which this took us probably 20 minutes to get to.
Yeah.
There's a boss, and we went into the boss with pretty much no health, got killed immediately,
Yeah, pretty
and
much
then
immediately.
it put us back to the beginning of level 2, and we're like, oh shit.
But we knew
That-
we could do it now.
Yeah, except level 2 took us 45 years. So
Versus
Yeah.
modern games where you like can save before you hit like, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
head into a little bit of like 6 people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, save. Go in.
or
Save.
even the big thing about modern games is that they are so forgiving that you can die to the boss in most games and you just end up in front of the boss again, like right
Yeah.
outside the door pretty much.
Most of the time these days, you won't even die at the boss unless you're me and playing Elden Ring and hate yourself. But, but I think this game is just really smartly paced. Like, because think about it. We did not see any gremlins in this game until level 2.2. So the first level is Gizmo trying to escape the lab. And so we're getting a lot of what would be like stock enemy characters in other video
Bats
games, like
and
bats and rats
speeders.
and tomatoes. But
Yeah,
it
the
makes sense because
tomatoes.
he's in the lab, and they had the
Giant. Remember in the movie they had this giant indestructible tomato that he threw like a bouncy ball.
Yeah, that's what he's dealing with. Yeah,
Wait. That seemed like a normal sized tomato.
to Gizmo though.
but they weren't sentient.
No, but I mean it's pretty smart in the way it's laid out because your first level, like you're just running around jumping and you've got like a little small, I don't even know what you're throwing, like little balls or little tomatoes or something. And then at the end of the first level, you get a match, and all of a sudden you can shoot like a more powerful weapon. Each level is going
You
to culminate
start
with you getting a
spitting
little
fire.
stronger. Yeah, and then you're going to eventually just become like Rambo Gizmo.
And
which
then
is-
periodically you have the shop, which asks you, what would you like to buy? And your answers are yes or no.
I always love that. What would you like to buy? Yes.
What I imagine happened was when they like scripted out, like, okay, this is going to be, when you talk, like the first dialogue here is going to be, would you like to buy something? And then yes or no, and then you get the options. And then they ended up changing it. And it's like, what do you want to buy? Because you're going to have options. And then they just forgot to change the yes or no.
I love all.
Or they forgot to add a different. Have one prompt of like, would you like would you like to buy something? Yes or no? Yeah. Why? What do you want to buy? But it was great.
The translation errors in these games are always classic. My favorite is from the original Ghostbusters game for the NES. If you beat the game, it says, "Congratulation, you are winner. You have beaten great game." And it is not a great game. So,
and then there was one thing that
Spoiler.
we
Spoiler,
we
yeah, we'll
noticed,
get to it.
When you die, the continue screen, the I in continue is a 1.
right.
And
yeah,
it's
you were
like,
gonna
all right, well, they needed a 1 for the currency, and so they just were like, all right, we don't need an I anymore. We have a 1.
say- yeah,
Done.
done. Got it.
Which I also think is fun because I had forgotten that was a thing until we played this, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's a thing that used to happen was they were limited on space and memory, so they're like, all right, well, what letters do we not need in this game?
I think they applied that extra memory in the right directions because, the game looks fantastic. I like that you do get infinite continues. So, like, the game is challenging, but it's not, like, going to break you
You
in
get
half.
infinite continues because it takes you back to a point that was 10 minutes ago.
Exactly. Yeah, it takes a little bit. And,
Take that, kid.
but there are a couple little things they do. Like, I really like the balloon power-up. Like, you start every level with one balloon. If you fall into a pit or something, then the balloon will carry you out. And it actually lingers for a while, so you can kind of skip over this problematic part that you keep dying at. But once that balloon is gone, then you've lost the balloon unless you buy a new one at the store. But it's a helpful
die.
mechanic. Yeah, or you die, you start over, and you get a new
Or
balloon.
you spend the crystal balls that you've been collecting at the shop, which
Yeah, we kept debating. It's like, does this stand for like clamp bucks or something? Because I think they mentioned something like
it says like CB and then a number, and it wasn't until we eventually found the start menu, the pause menu, and that had the number on it, and it just said crystal and then the number, and I was like, wait a minute.
that. Yeah, and that's maybe a little problematically racist. Also, the weird thing of like going to the store to buy things with crystal balls from Mr. Wing. Mr. Wing is dead.
Yeah.
He died. He's not alive anymore. Why is he taking your?
He was never a fortune teller.
He was never a fortune teller. Like that's the thing about the Mr. Wing character. Like the movie does not actually paint him as like a mystic or anything. He's just a guy who runs a shop that has some weird stuff, and he just doesn't have a lot of patience for people. And I think this is trying to making him into shopkeeper was weird.
I loved that part at the end of the first one, just to go back a little bit, where he like just shows up and he's like, "Oh, I knew what was going on. Like, I gotta get this Mogwai back."
Yeah.
And then he mentions something about one of the inventions that the dad was offering him. He's like, "Yes, I know about it." And he's like, "How do you know about it?" He's like, "I talked to the guy at the gas station. He wanted to sell me one too."
Exactly. See, it's
And
like
it's
he's
like,
not looking into a crystal ball. He's
Yeah.
talking to a guy having a severe emphysema attack.
He had to. That also implies that he had to stop at a gas station.
Yeah, he's a human being. He
Even
fills up
though
his gas
we
tank.
never see his car
No.
at the end of the movie.
Hey, maybe he had trouble finding parking. There were a lot of corpses in the street. You know.
Honestly, that might be one where you park on the edge of town and then slip your way in because
Yeah, get underneath some yellow tape or something.
It was looking like Raccoon City at that point.
A little bit.
Not a good time.
Speaking of gremlins,
Uh-huh.
Speaking of things.
the electricity gremlin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
We didn't talk about the electricity gremlin, and it
I don't
both
think I understood what was happening there.
enraged me and amused me. Oh,
He's kind of a Deus Ex gremlin. Yeah,
it
he's,
is a
you-
Deus Ex
you-
gremlin.
You break him out at the end to just like solve all the problems. But yeah, he is nuts. It's just an excuse to get like a cartoon, like a literal cartoon gremlin in here. The animation on him's great, and I think you do fight him as a boss in this game as well. But yeah, he gets to like electrocute all the gremlins, you know, after electrocuting Christopher Lee. It's just weird that he gets trapped on a video phone.
Yeah, he gets put on hold on a video phone because that's how electricity works.
Sure. Yeah, go with it. Go with it. This Hulk Hogan's in this movie. You just go with it.
The entire day was saved by the fact that the woman had secretarial skills.
Yes, exactly. She knew how to transfer a call, which honestly I would not have known how to do. So.
But then it was portrayed as if she was hacking the mainframe. I was
Have you ever
like, this is
transferred a
great.
call? Have you ever had to transfer a call in real life before?
I used to work in call centers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've transferred
compli-
many calls.
I'm just saying that it can be quite
I will
complicated.
say the amount of times that I got transferred a dead call because the other person couldn't figure out how to transfer call was really high. I never had that problem. It always just made sense to me. It's like, all right,
So you would have saved the day.
I guess I would have saved the day.
I will shout out my friend and former coworker Kara, because when we worked at the same newspaper together, she was in charge of kind of routing all the calls. And the one day that she wasn't there and I was in charge of it, I hung up almost every call. And they had to get back to me because I'm just like, Kara's not here. I don't know how to do this. So we basically had to throw her a party when she got back. It's
man.
like, come on.
Everyone would have died if you had been Phoebe Cates, but everyone
yeah.
would have lived if Justin had been
But
Phoebe
Fast
Cates.
Times at Ridgemont
guess-
High would still be sexy.
I guess that's been my life because my first job, I ended up, other than the one in the cornfield, I ended up customer service at a grocery store. So I was the one answering the phone and transferring every call to the departments.
Okay.
Because people would go it would go through like all the options, and then they'd hit customer service, and they'd ask me questions about meat, and I'm like, meat department was an option. Why are you doing this?
All right, so it's decided Justin is the Phoebe Cates of this podcast.
I think that's settled.
It
Hold
makes
on, let me
sense.
transfer this call real quick.
Oh, look at him go! Look at those!
Done.
Look at that button pressing.
Button pressing.
That's pretty good.
But back to the game.
Back to the game. I kind of came in a little preloaded on this game. I have played it before. I've beaten it before, and I always really enjoyed it. But it's been probably 15 years since I played it, so I wasn't sure if there were some like false memories going on. So I was really delighted to see this game holds up. I think it looks great. I think it plays really well. And it's one of the more enjoyable games that we've played on this show so far, I think.
I 100% agree.
And
Yeah.
I think that might be a good time to get to our ratings because
Let's
I
say-
suspect, I don't know, I'm not going to vote for you guys, but for me, this is the first good that we've ever had.
My only negative about the game was that I wasn't good enough at it. So
You were actually playing the brunt of it. Like you were playing most of it and doing all the difficult work. So,
I was scouting everything out.
so
Eventually, we had to get Steve to get us through to the boss.
Well, you know. So each week we are rating the properties that we have watched from a good movie, a good game, to bad movie, bad game, to everything in between. And this is my first good movie, good game. I really enjoy both of these. I think they complement each other very well. And I think that Gremlins 2 is kind of a secret little masterpiece that people need to check out.
My first good was Dracula.
Oh, right. Yeah. You were much more forgiving on that game than I was.
But I think this is, I don't know. It's hard to say that this is a good movie when I absolutely adored. It's not intrinsically a great movie, but it's great. It's great. It's so watchable. It's rewatchable. There are so many movies that you would never want to rewatch, but this is not one of them. Yeah. So definitely, I'm gonna say, very good movie.
Yes.
And
Are you
good
saying
game.
this wasn't the Gremlins movie you wanted?
Well, no, I'd like Gremlins 1 takes it. Like, I love Gremlins 1.
And this one is I don't know. I think the cool thing is that this one manages to sort of poke fun at the original while still honoring the original. I don't think this cancels out the original.
Yeah, I don't think it does either.
I think it's just it's doing what a good sequel should do, which is amplifying everything the first one had.
And it also, we didn't talk much about it, but, it brings in Chuck Jones. And it's just so, the creator of Looney Tunes and, it's such a beautiful homage to the slapstick comedy.
And what was the situation with that movie the Gremlins put on?
Which one?
It was
beach
volleyball.
Yeah, it's like an old nudist.
It's wait a minute.
I love that.
What are these Gremlins up to?
It's like the dirtiest thing they could show in a
I think
PG-13
the first
movie.
one they were mentioned Snow White, so I thought they were going to show it again, but they're like, no.
At no point was it Snow White.
Risque volleyball.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess this movie does answer the question: are gremlins sexually attracted to humans? Because I think one of them marries a human.
I think that question was answered even if you didn't think about that part.
Probably.
But
there is a flasher gremlin in both of these movies. Yeah, I like that she kicks him in the balls this time. Yeah. Or his little.
Where the balls would be.
Does he have a cloaca?
He's got a Ken situation.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Just a mound.
He has an
ovipositor. It's like Attack on Titan. Don't worry about it. It'll be
fine. Justin, where you come down on this one?
Yeah, I mean, good. What the hell is going on out there? Sorry.
Chaos.
I have ADHD and things are happening. I'm like, oh, noises.
Well, I moved my studio to Beirut in the 90s, so I apologize for that.
Yeah. A lot of whoops outside, but not like
Juggalos. Yeah, they've got a problem with them. They're always storming the streets, whooping it up, spraying their Faygo everywhere.
Yeah.
Faygo's a good cola.
Faygo. I've never had Faygo.
Faygo is very good cola.
Okay, that's the Midwest coming out because you called it a cola. Is it not? I thought it was like a cherry soda, right?
No, it's a wide range of orange
different
sodas,
flavors.
Root beer. I think their root beer
Red.
might be one of the best root beers that
Interesting.
exist. They have an excellent orange soda. Their Coke is okay, but their orange soda and their root beer is pretty top-notch.
We're going to announce at the end of this one that we're going to start a Faygo podcast where each podcast we sample a different kind of Faygo, and then we talk about the different flavor profiles, textures, all of that.
Absolutely.
And then we rate it on whether or not it's a good Faygo or a bad soda.
Yeah. I think
for those who don't know, Faygo is a Midwestern soda company.
Yeah, and I really only know it as the drink of choice of Juggalos. I've never tried it myself. I'm not besmirching Faygo at all. That's just all I know about it because that whole trend came from that region.
Oh, man, that was a whole thing.
That was a whole thing.
Yeah, I think the movie was good. It was fun. I was definitely maybe a little bit too tired to understand all of what was happening at the end. I took a nap immediately after. And then the game was fun but difficult.
Yeah, that's saying yes right there.
I mean, I'll say, I would never choose this game just because I don't like playing retro games all that often.
Sure.
But for a retro game, it played well. The controls made sense. even if I can't remember which one's A and which one's B half the time.
I do the same. I still do the same.
They didn't move.
Yeah.
It's the same.
No, they're still there. Yeah.
And for the time, the visuals were good. It definitely seemed like whoever made it put time and effort into it. Because the game, there at no point did we encounter anything that was broken either.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I guess in Wayne's World we didn't really encounter anything that was broken, but we didn't encounter much that was fixed either.
Right. Yeah.
But there was no moments of glitchiness. There was no moments of like, why did that happen? It played smooth. It was a nice experience.
Yeah.
I think also I have to let everyone know that if they have not seen the Key and Peele sketch, Gremlins 2.
How have we gone this long without mentioning that skit? Yeah.
It is an absolute delight, and it's even more delightful to watch it after you've seen this movie recently.
Don't watch it before. Watch it after.
Like, it's... it warms my heart that somewhere in some writer's room, somebody was like, you know what's weird? Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
And it was just like the whole setup is a sequels doctor just lets people brainstorm, and they're just like in the movie, and it's so good. It's such a great sketch.
It's great because it's not even making fun of the movie. I think it's celebrating the whole anarchic spirit of the whole thing. It's just like, yeah, you get every idea is in play. Everything can come into this movie.
They just say say it for what it is.
Yeah.
And it really paints the picture of just how zany of a movie it becomes.
Yeah.
What a time.
It's a delight.
Don't feed your gremlins after midnight.
Just don't do it. Just don't do it. But
also, I would advise that you just don't have any gremlins or mogwai around.
I know they're cute. Yeah, but
look,
eventually we're going to have a discussion about killing them because it's for the better of humanity. I don't think this sounds like a fun movie, to be honest. The more I say it out loud.
I mean, I feel like that I could see it being an interesting experience, especially if that part comes in near the end where they're like, look, buddy, hey.
I'm just imagining like the end of The Fly with like Gizmo putting the shotgun against his head.
No, oh my gosh. I would say it would be Phoebe Cates, the wife.
Yeah.
And just taking it into her own recognizance to kill Gizmo. And then accidentally killing Billy.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So it becomes like a Tennessee Williams play.
I have a secondary movie pitch. Billy, what's her name? What's her name in the movie? Kate.
Yeah.
Gizmo, Waterworld.
Oh, there we go. Oh, it's just a whole ocean of little gremlin balls.
That's why they have to weigh the odds, because they're like, look, buddy.
Also, Billy and Kate can't be married yet.
No, marriage doesn't exist after the apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly.
It's invented.
Yeah, everybody's drinking their own pee. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about Waterworld in the future.
Why would you drink your own? Oh, wait.
You filter it.
I was about to say, why would you drink your own pee if you're just surrounded by water? But
seawater. Yeah.
But also, where you gonna pee?
Yeah, exactly. Right in the water. You're just gonna be drinking it anyway. Yeah. At least this way you have some quality control.
There are things you can do to seawater to be able to.
The big complaint. Okay, I'm not gonna go off on too much of a Waterworld tangent, but the big complaint when that movie came out is why isn't he just filtering the ocean water?
Yeah.
Like just scoop it up. I guess maybe there's a salinity issue. Whatever. He drinks his pee.
You can desalinize it. It's not unheard of.
Yeah. That's Waterworld.
If I'm not mistaken, and I think I learned this from playing the game Raft. One of the easiest ways to do it is to use condensation.
Yeah.
And then collect water.
I think we've gotten off topic.
Maybe we've gotten off topic. We'll wrap up here.
What if anything was Waterworld?
I think us talking about desalination.
When our Gremlins episode, I think we might have lost the plot. That's okay.
Do we have to kill Gizmo.
Well, we'll talk
The
about
world
that
will
when
find
the
out.
third one comes out.
This
But-
podcast will still be going in 5 years, and the movie comes out. So
Absolutely, let's do it.
I mean, we have like 300 plus in the docket, I think, on the list.
And we have a
so-
government contract that says we have to watch all of them.
Yeah,
so,
we're
what are we gonna
legally
do?
obligated to do all
Yeah,
of this.
the-
I don't know if you know that there was an incident.
Yeah.
This is actually considered part of our community service.
Yeah. We're not legally allowed to talk about it, but let's
Yeah,
just say
that's
the
as
Army is
far as the
involved.
NDA lets me get.
And really, the only way that you can help counteract that is by going on to Apple Podcasts, giving us a 5-star review and a nice review on there.
Do they do half stars?
They don't, thank God.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I
no,
don't know. I
only-
feel like I'd be more likely to give somebody 4.5 stars than 5.
Don't encourage
Don't
that.
encourage
You want to give us
that.
the 5. Give us the 5. Yeah, you're already there. Just go a little
Give us a
further.
5, and then give us a 5, either a high 5 or a $5 bill.
One of those, yeah.
Either one is good to me.
You can write us any messages you might have to cinemarcadepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram with that same name. So thank you, everybody, for listening to our Gremlins
Wait.
mini-series.
Oh.
we have more?
What's next week?
Oh, I was going to
Oh,
tell you
okay.
here.
I
We
was-
have...
I was
No,
like,
we were
oh,
gonna
no.
hard
That was
cut.
a hard cut.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to tell you, but it is a little cold in here. I've got chills. Oh, no, they're multiplying. And I'm losing control.
No, there's no way that's a movie.
Oh, it's happening.
No,
We are playing Grease the Game. We are watching 1978's Grease, and then get ready because it's a Wii game that has us dancing. So we are
Oh my!
dancing.
Oh
we are singing.
no.
We are playing Grease the
Oh
Game
dear God!
next week.
So
It's the only one so far until the Grease 2 game
Okay.
comes out, in which case we can finally sing Cool Rider. But no, not happening this time. It's just Grease 1. Oh boy.
this is
I have not
seems
played this at all.
like it's gonna be a disaster.
All right, so be sure to tune in next week for the beautiful disaster that will be our Grease episode.
Find out whether or not it's a good movie, bad movie, good game, or bad game. Because look,
Let's just call it all problematic.
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole
I-
thing. Yes. All right. So see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Stay out of the sunlight.